Yeah, well, when you first hear those things, fighting and healing, we can think they're opposite, but they're really not opposite, and that's what.
Today we are here with Cian Dalton. He is the other half of the Stretch Space, co-founder along with his wife Carolyn Dalton, who I interviewed on our last episode. Cian is a former professional boxer. He is a breathwork facilitator, also a stretch therapist, a mindset coach, and a keynote speaker. And you were also an engineer. You worked in wind power.
That's right. Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Great to be here. Yeah, I've done had some big career changes. I worked in the field of wind power, very academic job. I studied energy and air while sitting at a desk hunched over my computer. Later dawned on me in breathwork that, humans need energy from air too. And all of us engineers weren't breathing very well as we were studying this field so much. But feeling very frustrated from sitting down, I was drawn back to a boxing gym. I boxed growing up. I hadn't boxed in quite a few years. The first day back, I went there just for fitness. I was starting to feel like I was in a straitjacket in the office. My body was screaming to move. And so I landed back in the gym, and on the first day, they threw me in the ring. And I told them I'd boxed growing up. And all that pent up energy just unleashed. And I felt completely different. And it was intense. I finally had a place to express that energy that sitting at the desk was just leaking out sideways and getting irritable and frustrated. And then I had a channel, and that was the beginning of a healing with fight for me. Later, I went from boxing back to engineering, same thing, not going to last. And that's when I found breathwork. My very first breathwork session, I had healing of a traumatic incident regarding fight as a kid. And in that session, my hand locked tight into a fist. A facilitator helped me to open the hand. When the hand opened, I had a rush of energy, of grief, of rage, of crying for the first time in many years. And once again, I felt completely electric and alive. And I got to finish something in terms of fight during that session. It was hugely healing for me. That was the beginning of my breathwork journey.
I remember in one of your classes you said that you had studied air as an engineer, and now you're studying air as a breathwork facilitator in the simplest, most accessible, direct human way, with teaching people how to breathe.
Absolutely. The wind turbine catches the air. We can also receive it.
Yeah.
And in between those two was boxing.
You said that there were two worlds that you've known and loved, and that they are now merging or starting to merge. And those two worlds are fighting and healing.
Yeah, well, when you first hear those things, fighting and healing, we can think they're opposite, but they're really not opposite. And that's what I'm trying to convey. I boxed for many years, and then I worked in healing for many years and still do. And it was a rapid change, an extreme shift to go from using hands to hurt to using them to help, and to help others heal. So naturally, I kind of shifted my identity, my personality. I noticed, particularly in the breathwork spaces, there's a lot of softer terms being used, a lot of men just guiding in a more feminine energy. And that might be okay for some, but it didn't feel aligned for me. And so eventually I started to realize there was something in fight that was not being provided in healing. And healing does so much, and there's so much space for this gentle healing that is really important. It's not to say that one is better than the other, but we need both. A healthy nervous system needs to rise and to rest. And so within the nervous system, there's fight, flight, rest, digest. Fight is often seen as something that needs to be taken care of and sort of removed and healed. But actually, it's something that needs to be harnessed and channeled. I think fight is intimidating. And by fight, I don't just mean physical combat, I mean the energy of standing up for yourself, of standing your ground, speaking your truth, standing up for what matters. I think that's very important in today's world.
You say fight is more than conflict, and fight is sacred when it's held well. What do you mean when you say when fight is more than conflict?
Fight could be standing up, just setting a boundary. Doesn't have to be so intense. It's also an expression of energy. It's the highest form of sympathetic activation. So it's the energy of mobilization. It's going from, let's say we're in a freeze state. We want to start moving, maybe away from the threat, moving our body, but then maybe standing there and moving into it could be fight energy as well.
Could you speak about the difference between a mobilization that's maybe coming from a reactive or a fight place, maybe where we think often of fighting as, it's like impulsive, versus a fight instinct or a fight energy that is moving through mobilization in a constructive way or in a healing way? Could you speak to that?
Yeah, just having an intentional practice of bringing up that energy. So, like in boxing, you could have a heavy bag. You could just hit it for the sake of it, get a bit of workout, burn some calories, or you could really be like thinking about something that is bringing up a feeling of fight in your life and using the bag to channel that energy and put the energy into something. So it's a focused practice of using the fight to something. Or another example is I'm writing a book right now, and I'm using feeling of fight to express.
So it's this energy of mobilizing, of creating, is that how you would describe it, this fight energy?
It's definitely focused. If you think about combat, it's quite focused. So it's taking the energy you might use in that kind of fight and putting it into something else. So yeah, I think it's highly motivating, especially for a man. I can speak from a man's perspective. There's something I've been thinking about, this quote: "If you want something done, ask a busy man." Well, I like to say, if you want something done, ask somebody who's fighting for something, because they will get a lot done.
It's
when they
true.
have that purpose and drive. And
yes, that fire is so needed to get our asses moving.
I'd say a lot of amazing things in the world are created with this energy.
Yeah.
And maybe it wasn't perfect. Someone might have got burned along the way, but it can definitely create a lot.
So what do you mean when you say fight is sacred when it's held well?
It can protect, of course. It can be used to protect, whether it's with your word or with your body. If you think about wild animals, there's nothing bad about an animal fighting another animal, because it's not wrong. They're not manipulating them, or it's part of the natural system. So that would be sacred, I think, in the wild, and for humans too. It's just a really high form of energy, really. So it can be destructive, or it can be used for good.
Absolutely. And I think about if that impulse is squashed or if that isn't actually honored or given the space that it has in our nervous system, in the kind of hierarchy of action, how many beautiful outcomes are not being permitted. Like you say, protection, creativity, passion, like an activism. There's a real mobilizing force to that. So I love that you're speaking to this.
Yeah, and just to add there, if it doesn't get expressed, it goes somewhere. It goes somewhere. It doesn't just disappear.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah, it comes out in the online comment sections a lot.
In the YouTube comments.
YouTube comments. So
yeah.
keep that in mind if you're watching. There's no consequence to that, and fight usually has a consequence.
And the anonymity too of the online space. We can just kind of leak and not have the accountability for our words. Yeah.
It can be directed inward too. You can fight yourself.
Yes.
Because we're suppressing something that's natural. So we might self-sabotage or find other ways to...
Or in our relationships, or I think of health implications, inflammation, the way heat, when it's not flowing, can show up physically. Chinese medicine speaks a lot about, stuck heat, stagnant heat. So I think there's a real connection there as well. For you, how is breathwork, fighting, and healing connected to the body, to body connection?
Breathwork is the key to the nervous system. So how we breathe is really how we live. Our breath will shift our nervous system so quickly. and the nervous system will drive how we move, how we live. There's in fight and sympathetic activation, we're going to be breathing more rapidly, we're going to be more inhale focused. If I see a bear, I tend to inhale through the mouth. That triggers a lot of sympathetic responses. If it's a false alarm, usually exhale, and that down regulates the nervous system. Even one breath can change it. Boxing fight, for example, it's different to like a street fight. Street fight is like pure primal survival energy. Boxing's controlled, regulated combat with rules. So even within that, there's a rising and resting of the nervous system. The breath will pick up. Then we have rounds and rhythm. So between rounds, we'll slow the breath down regulate, and you come back up. But then even within the round, you might be in moments of like, high sympathetic activation, and other moments of more relaxed movement.
So is there a correlation? You're saying there's a correlation between our inhale, sympathetic activation, and fight energy. Those are kind of correlated.
Yeah.
And then the opposite, you're saying you would cycle through, or as you exhale or as you down regulate, it's more of a resting energy or a regulating energy.
Yeah, like in between rounds, you're going to slow down your breath so you can take in instruction, and you want to really just rest as much as possible, and then you stand back up, you've got 60 seconds, and then you go again.
All right, so we've reached the point of the interview where I invite our guests. I'll invite you to lead viewers through a short embodiment practice. I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, great. What I'd like to share is something really simple that I call the boxer's bounce. So as we are going into like a big event or a speech or intense conversation, the nervous system will start to amp up, and we can help to balance that out by this bouncing practice. So quite simply, the intention is to let everything in your body go really loose, especially loosening the diaphragm, and simply just bounce up and down and let the shoulders go as loose as possible. So simple, but it's really effective if you only have 30 seconds. This can be quite a lot.
So what's happening here as we're bouncing?
So we're loosening the diaphragm, we're relaxing the shoulders, body starting to want to tense as we get into fight play. It's trying to protect everything. We're staying open and loose, and simply bouncing up and down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let your feet land. You maybe close down the eyes here, and just notice how you feel. Notice your breath. And really nice to come into stillness after that practice. Bouncing is transmuting energy, and now we're sitting in. Showtime.
Awesome, thank you. How are you going to be working with this? You mentioned you're writing a book. Are you designing workshops or any kind of classes? How do you see if someone was curious to kind of get in touch with their fight energy or explore their fight energy? How are you going to be helping people with this?
Yeah, the book and there's workshops coming, and breathwork is a great way to work with this too. Just to have the space and the invitation to lean into some expression of these energies is sometimes all that's needed. But through breathwork, we can activate this energy. Of course, I'm a rare breed in that I sometimes combine breathwork with boxing. So I do get clients hitting some pads, activate some energy, and then do the breathwork, or vice versa. A lot of other ways of playing with.
Yeah, you had mentioned as well kind of play and different ways that energy can be expressed and channeled to let it move. No, there's all sorts of things.
Play fighting is a great thing that animals do.
Yeah.
And that's something I'll be playing with soon too.
Great. Well, I look forward to seeing the offerings you're putting out. I know you'll probably be gearing them towards men, but
it was interesting to see quite a few women reach out and comment on the post. So we'll just see. I'm completely open.
Yeah. Great. Well, looking forward. How can people follow you? And do you have any upcoming courses or trainings that you would like to share with our viewers?
You can find me here at the Stretch Space. So the Stretch Space on Instagram, our website, my own handle on Instagram is just my name, Cian Dalton. I do have a 3-month breathwork facilitator training coming up in October, and we will lean into some of this energy in that training as well and learn how to facilitate others with this.
Awesome. Yeah, so check out thestretchspace.com and come in for a session to do stretch therapy. They do amazing work here, Carolyn and Cian. Thank you so much for joining us today on Living Body Connection. And this was a fascinating conversation. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.